Yeah. My first question, when you were talking about the first translation section with this, I was like, all right, like he translated from, and these are multiple languages. It's not like he just knew one. He knew a
Right.
few. Although it looks like some of the Asian languages for those translations, he had somebody help, you know, because those don't translate as cleanly either. So it's you're gonna lose something in the translation if you don't speak the language fluently. Then you're gonna miss things. But my first question is like, it does seem like it was like an older poets thing, like a generation ago or several generations ago, that they were very obsessed with translating, like pound and all this kind of stuff. And uh, I just wonder, like, kind of why that is,
Um,
or why do we think it is?
well, I mean, I know roughly well, first of all, like I already mentioned, Pound sort of said, do this.
Right.
Um, and one of the things that he said about becoming a writer was that, you have to try your best to like write a certain amount every day, but oh, you're like, what, 20, so you can't write every day because, really you have nothing to say yet. So you should do translation and like, get better at listening and like learning
Right.
from uh
The universal but in different expressions kind of thing. Yeah.
yeah, that kind of thing. I mean, things that you can look at as being taken for granted, I think is the way Pound and he talked about it. It was like talks about translating the early troubadours,
Yeah.
many of which were song lyrics. So some of it was about the relationship between poetry and music to go back that far,
I guess,
which made them particularly hard to translate, apparently, because they were song lyrics.
and that's, I guess I'm getting more interested in translations, uh, not necessarily because I'm like, oh, I want to be translating these poems, although, it's more so like I've been trying to learn these languages to just be able to read, like read these texts in their original French or something. I would like to be able to do that, and there is, I, I don't know. I mean, I guess I'm asking the question, or I thought of this question as I was reading through this stuff, and yeah, I wrote down in my notes. Okay, this reminds me a little bit of Ezra Pound. Like his kind of obsession with translating things, and people have their views on how he translated things, but I just it seems like something that has gone away. Not that it's disappeared, because it's still happening. Obviously, I mean, it's still happening. Copper
Yeah, it's
Canyon
like it
publishes
seems,
translations all the time. The people that put out this
but
book.
in
But
terms of, do poets like in their sort of
right,
whatever they see as their sort of poetry education, whether that's like personal or if that happens in an institution, like it doesn't seem like it's commonly or as commonly thought of as like an obvious like you should do this. This is part of
uh,
every poet's education, unless you are in a PhD program, which many seem
I
to.
was just about to say, dude, a lot of PhD programs are dropping the language requirement. So
Oh, well.
yeah, so it's not. And even so, most of them only require like 2 to 4 semesters of up to like level 3 or 4 Spanish or something. So like most kind of a refresher from high school for most people if they actually paid
Yeah.
attention. But yeah, I've noticed more and more PhDs that are just dropping the language requirement or letting you fulfill it with bullshit kind of thing. So there
Yeah,
are
so
less PhDs in English graduating that don't have a firm grasp on a secondary language. And I mean that is dying a little bit. And Merwin in this collection has a kind of an obsession with dying languages, which I mean it's interesting. Like I mean, if you're just somebody who's interested in words and stuff, like languages and how they evolve and how they die out is fascinating. You could spend hours going down rabbit holes. My great grandfather, my mother always tells stories about how he would just say things in Gaelic and stuff like that, and she wouldn't understand what he was saying at like Thanksgiving or whatever. Like he would just be talking and then break into Gaelic, and it's like, well, nobody at the table understood Gaelic but him, because even people in Ireland don't even speak it anymore. So it's
Yeah, I mean, in that poem that's called Learning a Dead Language, this is on page 52. The first lines are, there is nothing for you to say. You must learn first to listen.
I wonder if that's a direct line from Ezra Pound.
I doubt it,
Yeah, learning a dead language, and I
but
guess
I'm
that
sure I wouldn't be surprised to find that like was born out of that interaction.
yeah, and we like how many dead languages there are too. It is kind of crazy. Like I talked to you about this the other day, where I was reading a lot of Joyce recently. I pretty much read all of Joyce, uh, including his poems, chamber music, and all that kind of stuff. But it kept occurring to me that like when they would give, like he would, part of like Ulysses and a lot of Joyce's stuff, he would just break into Latin or any other fucking language like French or Gaelic, and he would just put that in there, and there would be no translations like in the text. And it was just like, okay, because at that time, if you were educated enough to read a novel like this, then you probably just knew Latin and French and all these different
Yeah.
things because you just used to be taught all that at the same time. And that's just not happening. So, yeah, I mean, I guess it makes sense that it's like the older generation was more into this than the current generation. But,
Well,
yeah.
not just into this, but like it was expected, I
Right,
think.
expected. It was part of the knowledge base that you would be
It
expected to
was
know
also
as an expert in literature or creator or whatever it is.